Thank you so much for staying with us here on TVC Breakfast. It's now time for us to look at what the papers are reporting. First, we have the Nation newspaper with the screaming headline, kind of having, a little bit of challenge and, challenge rather, downloading some of these papers. But then let's move on. The Nation newspaper with a big headline, defection, ADC hits back at Peter Obi. Kwankwaso, ex-Anambra governor, only wanted a platform to contest. Senator Ume, we were isolated. The Platform Times, with its own newspaper saying, fresh party, fresh crisis. Obi Kwankwaso hit early storm in NDC. Legal battle threatens party legitimacy. Internal rifts deepen across states. Leadership tussle spreads to Kano, Southwest. Interesting. And the Blueprint newspaper, if that's, I hope that's the next, just give me a moment. Okay. So after the Nation newspaper, we have the Platform Times. Well, the Blueprint comes here. Let's just move on with it. After years of being comatose, NNPCL, China signed MOU to restart, expand Port Harcourt Warri refineries. Partnership significant milestone. Ojulari Corporation sustains growth post 276 billion naira profit in March. Next is the Observer Times. DSS versus Serap. Court delivers judgment in 5.5 billion naira defamation suit today. Okay, well, let's continue with the papers that we have here, in the time being, while others, get down to the time for us to review. But in the meantime, we'll see what the Nation newspaper has started with, talking about the issue of Peter Obi moving from Peter Obi and Kwankwaso, and indeed some other politicians moving from one political party to another, which started from the journey, started from ABGA, talking about Peter Obi, to PDP, to Labour Party, to ADC and NDC. So they are facing fresh, challenges, there. The ADC responding to Peter Obi and Kwankwaso, saying that what their move was actually premeditated. Not that because they had crises and all of that, they could have, waited the, court issue out. So a faction of the ADC led by National Chairman Nafi Ugombe had also previously challenged the validity of Obi's membership, claiming his registration at a zonal office in Enugu violated the party's constitution. Olamide.
Because coalition politics is very, very tricky. What I'm seeing here with this already internal battles and fragmentation that the NDC is having, what that tells me is that there has been alliance before there has been no agreement before this alliance was made. Right. Coalition politics requires clear structures, clear hierarchies of who is going to lead and who is going to do what. And as it stands right now, the NDC does not seem like a very scalable, nor viable political opposition.
Well, they might disagree with you, saying that that's where the El Dorado is for them. And you imagine, when these people move from one political party to the other, in fact, they've barely spent 5 months together. Yeah. And now they've started accusing themselves. How are they moving like termites? Termites move from one particular place, they destroy it, go to another party, they destroy it, much more like no ideology. And
I know that the ADC, they want to speak fast because a lot of people are not taking them serious again. If you even look at it, they've lost a couple of followers and they also lost a couple of people that said wherever Obi goes, I will follow him. So they also see that we need to speak out fast for people to still think that we're a viable, opposition. But at the end of the day, it's going to be very difficult for the ADC, especially in producing a standard bearer, because even as at now, they are still having confusion within themselves. Okay, let's say Peter Obi and Kwankwaso have left. Within yourselves now, who are you actually picking to be your standard bearer? We're getting close to 2027. The conversation has always been about, this person is this person is that. Nobody wants to, come down for someone. And that has always been the issue with them. Right. Now, when we talk about the NDC, politicians are very optimistic. A politician would try many times, just like Atiku. Atiku believes that, he will become president one day. They are very optimistic. So they believe that with the NDC right now, them in that party, nothing is stopping them. But for me, what I believe is that a lot of people are now very skeptical, because I was reading social media comments, even with, Peter Obi and Kwankwaso's move, where people were saying that this man, at some point, you need to rest. Even Jesus rested on the 7th day. Do you understand? Because it's been from one place to another. With the whole of it, I'm not even seeing the ideologies of the NDC. What I wanted to see is for them to tell me what is now the ideology with the NDC. I watched when Peter Obi was speaking and he said, this new party that we've gotten to, may the bad people not come. Like, what do you mean? Like, what makes you feel like there won't be bad people in that party? The ability of a leader is the fact that you can command, is the fact that you can make things right, even when things are not right. A leader is not a person that just sits down and waits for things to be handed over to the president. So we want to now know, what are your ideologies with, you know, the NDC? It's not just about you going to a place that can give you the ticket. If you eventually get the ticket, what are you going to do?
All right, then, if you look at the platform times, Mr. Shomi, they say fresh party, fresh crisis. Obi Kwankwaso hits early storm in NDC. Legal battle threatens party legitimacy. Internal rifts deepen across states. Leadership tussle spreads to Kano Southwest. You know, there used to be ADA, the All Democratic Alliance, which has been confirmed that they're going to appeal INEC's recognition of the NDC because they went through rigorous, move, and then they paid a whole lot of money and they were not recognized. But the NDC got its own approval, recognition, via court. Via court. So they say they are going to appeal this, and this is showing that it is not uhuru for the NDC yet. So what if anything happens to the NDC? Obi and Kwankwaso might be KOing again to another place.
Nothing needs to happen to NDC. All what will take Obi to move, in my view, it's just extend the deadline from May 10 to July. You find Obi moving, ending up in the APC. That's quite. Look, he moves. The moment Ada is now challenging. Don't forget Ado. Ado is challenging, and they threatened that they will go to court. One of the founding fathers of Ada. Now, the moment Obi sees a court action, he starts looking for the new nest. Currently, he has said, oh, please, we don't want any more court action. But it's being welcomed, by court action. I have never seen a candidate who is not prepared to weather the storm, to look at the issues. What are the issues here? Let us resolve this problem and build a party. Rather than building a party, he's looking for a party already built where he can, use as a platform, which is contrary to, the real thing, which is build an organic party right from the beginning, develop it, be with people of the same feathers. What he did in ADC, he went into ADC. We all know that ADC is made up of different tendencies, all manners of people. Some people talk about marriage of convenience, to achieve an objective. In their own case, it's marriage of inconvenience. So when you face that kind of situation, you are bound to move. And don't forget, the opposition is now even in a terrible shape than before. When they started the idea of the coalition, nobody ever thought that you now have the opposition being divided into four currently. That is, you have the APM, Bala Mohammed, the governor of Bauchi State, Aminu Saraki and all that. That's their own nest. Then you have ADC, you have NDC now, and then you still have the Labour Party.
Labour Party, even PDP.
So people are not feeling accord. Is there not still a accord party?
There is not up to that national standing.
We still have other parties as well.
But all the same, people have also criticized Obi for not, for getting things on the platter. He's never fought really to become a presidential candidate. The fact that in Labour Party he got there and then he became the presidential candidate, even when he was in Abga as the governor, Ojukwu, anointed him. Now he's gone to the ADC. He wanted it for himself, but he couldn't get it because of Atiku. And now he's going to the NDC because, there's a...
That is a major problem which Obi is facing currently. He keeps saying that, look, I will only do one term, and that's it. And then people from a certain part of the country are asking a question, how do we believe you? You said you won't leave ABGA. You left. You said you won't leave PDP. You left. You joined ADC, a coalition, you have left. So you keep moving. So the problem with Obi is there's a crisis of trust around it. When you say something, you mean it. Whether right or wrong, people expect you to stick by it, and then they will hold you to it. But in the case of Obi is so slippery. You can't really pin him to any issue. And then when you ask the question, what do you represent?
Absolutely.
If you join NDC, you join this party, what is their manifesto? Nothing. Don't forget, when he contested on that Labour Party, for a long time there was no manifesto.
Absolutely. We need to raise that. Let's move on to the Punch newspaper, Nigerian Tribune, and the Hope newspaper. The Punch newspaper saying APC consensus cool. Governors tighten grip on Senate tickets, displays incumbents. And we have Uzodinma's Senate endorsement. And we also have Abiodun Gbenga Daniel clash as Ogun East ticket battle deepens. We'll talk about that. Olamide, Nigerian Tribune is also saying the same thing. 2027 consensus suffers setback in APC as aspirants dare governors. And the Hope newspaper also says the same thing. 2027 APC dumps consensus arrangements, adopts direct primaries nationwide. So yes, a little earlier we were talking about Obafemi Hamzat, being anointed as the consensus candidate. In Lagos State, we talked about that of Oyo State, Abiola Ali. Also, another one in Ondo State, Governor Loke Aiyedatiwa, also anointing his own senatorial, members and all of that. So with all of this, we see oppositions now saying, no, within the party, they're already kicking that we do not want it. So the APC has now taken a stance. Okay, fine. Guys, you need to go to the battle, so we are doing direct primaries as against, anointment of anyone.
But even in these direct primaries, at the surface, direct primaries seem very democratic, but not always. People still have the power to control party structures. People still have the power to sort of influence outcomes based on the political capital that they've built. So at the surface level, direct primary seems like a democratic thing, but not always, especially when you consider political machinations in Nigeria. But I will say this, in terms of these, the current sitting governors displacing incumbents because of the ticket issue, an election is only as credible as the process that it takes to get there. And this process happens inside parties. So what's happening inside parties right now will tell us about what's going to happen in future elections.
Absolutely. And Ria, talking about consensus, they still have it on the other side, but that's not the main thing. They said any state who wants to take consensus, then all aspirants have to sign and agree to it.
Of course, everybody has to be in agreement with it. If not, it cannot work. But when we talk about consensus candidates, if you ask me, Ibrahim, I believe, for example, when we talk about Lagos State, I believe that the reason why Hamzat was chosen, if I do say so, is because Sanwo-Olu has said, this is a fantastic job that I have done. Who is going to be able to take that legacy and continue? Because oftentimes, and this is not me supporting it or not supporting it, but I'm just giving you some of the pros and cons. Oftentimes, when a different person comes, the person can come and change the whole ideology, and it's quite difficult. If you look at a state like Lagos, we want to continue, the policies that the governor has put in place. So when we speak about consensus, I look at it from that angle, continuity. But of course, everybody has to be in agreement, because if the center doesn't hold, of course, people will fall.
Collapse.
But also, it's very important that at the end of the day, the person that is picked, either by consensus, either by primaries, is the right person. Because after all of that, the person is now going to be in charge, of that state. And as a governor whatsoever, you are the #1 man of the state. If anything happens, you will be held accountable.
Absolutely.
So whatever way we do it, whether by consensus, whether by direct primaries, let's just make sure that we are actually choosing the right person.
Absolutely. So if you look at, let's go back to the Punch newspaper, where we see Abiodun Gbenga Daniel clash as Ogun East ticket battle deepens. What do you see about this consensus arrangements, saying that, we have to do, but then there's this Governor Ayade saying that Tinubu has not been fair to him. He should allow him to, contest amid, the ticket row. So that of Gbenga Daniel and Abiodun. Why is it that people will leave being governor and the next thing they want to be senators?
Nobody wants to leave power.
Well, that's a very clear issue. Don't forget, politics is about power. And it's about your aspiration, and then it's about your supporters. It's about the platform which you want to contest, for elections. So quite often you see when people are in power, one way or the other, they think at the state level. If you really look at it, look at America clearly, you know that it's only in Nigeria that we've elevated, the position of the governor above the Senate. Ideally, it should be the Senate, in America above the governor. If you are to look at the ideal situation, which is the American model, which we copy the presidential system of government, then it is logical for somebody who has been a governor to want to go to Senate, because it's a progression, in that sense, if you look at it the way I'm viewing it. But in relation to the two gladiators in Ogun, both of them, well, one is a current governor, Governor Dapo Abiodun. One is a former governor. So you know that
Senator.
Both of them are gladiators, and they were both friends. And I still believe they are still friends. Anyway, that's how politics work. But at the end of the day, there had been an attempt to forge a consensus in Ogun East senatorial district. And I think one way or the other, Gbenga Daniel felt shot out of it. So because of that, he still insisted on contesting that election. So whatever it is, we know the president gave a preference to the state governors to say, look, we will let you control the situation if you can achieve consensus. So
but governors are now anointing their own candidates as a result.
So there'll be direct primaries.
We have less than 4 minutes to go very fast. Ria, I'll come to you with Observer Times. Olamide, this Nigeria is saying Federal government, NASU, SANU talks deadlock. Strike grounds universities as total shutdown enforced nationwide, and then unions are digging. So we know that, the primary demands are that of 4 months without salaries from 2022, and then renegotiation of the 2009 federal government SANU and NASU agreements. We thought we'd actually moved past, this issue, but we stay here.
Absolutely. We must remember that we are in a social contract with groups like NASU and SANU. Right. We are in a social contract. They provide services, and in turn, the administration and the government must make sure that their welfare is looked after, that fair conditions are met for the work that they've been doing. We have to remember that organizations like NASU and SANU, they're not just unions. They are organized voices, and they are credible negotiation arbiters. And so it's important that when we see that there's a lack of, there's a breakdown in communication, there is a problem. They are the middle ground between the government and the people that they represent. And when these strikes become common, it shows weakened levels of negotiation, and it's unacceptable. Absolutely. Ria, the government has actually done so much when it comes to education, but we do not want to see our universities going on strike, because there are some universities who are already threatening to go on strike over this. And I love to speak about this because anybody that knows me knows I'm very big on education. When you have a country and your education is solid, you're building a great future for tomorrow, because you're building leaders that will stand the test of time. Now, this is not the first time we've been hearing about ASU strike. I mean, in Ghana, most of the students I saw, when I asked them, why are you not schooling in Nigeria, all they told me then was ASU, and then I didn't even understand what ASU was until I got to Nigeria. I think that we need to get to a point. ASU is a beautiful country. I know, but like the strike, I didn't know what it was till I got to Nigeria. Right. I believe that we need to get to a point that we understand the importance of education. For example, we need to know what it does to these students. You have maybe 5 years to do medicine, and then you're doing medicine over 7, 8, 9. When would you now graduate? When will you start work? When will you get into the workforce? So when we talk about all of this, it's very important that we also talk about the people that are going to be involved, the students, that will be lamenting. Some of them will go home, some people will get pregnant, so many things happen. Now, what is the reason? The strike that is happening. I believe that we've come to a place in Nigeria where the giants of Africa, we shouldn't be having this kind of conversation about, oh, ASU is going on strike, ASU is not going on strike. We need to make sure that, everything is being put in place, their demands are being met. That's right. Why is it that when people are on strike, the next thing people will always say is that some will not be able to go to school, some will be doing some other things, and the other thing they'll say, we'll get pregnant. Because an idle mind is a devil's workshop. He's not being devil to get pregnant. No.
It's not only that, but there are also
so
other social vices.
Exactly. When you're bored, you take up the idle mind. The devil is always working. I get that. Just try to put your legs there. All right, then, let's move on to the Observer Times, which are showing me DSS and Serap seems to be going for both their jugulars. Court delivers judgment in 5.5 billion naira suits, defamation suits today. So we'll see the court looking at the DSS's operatives are asking Justice Yusuf Alilu for the following: 5 billion naira in general damages for libel, 50 million naira in litigation costs, because Serap is saying that when they accuse the DSS, it is not DSS as an institution, but officials of the DSS, getting into issues which they are going to court for. But I feel that is a court thing. Maybe we should just leave it for the courts to decide upon, because so that we don't run into subjudice. But lastly is the Sporting Life. Arsenal versus Atletico. Gunners will play like beasts. Odegaard and Havertz return. So we're going to be seeing beasts on the pitch. Yes,
we're expecting Ademola Lookman, to also feature. So he's probably going to come out very strongly for Atletico. But don't forget that Arsenal is well boosted by yesterday's result following the 3-3 draw between Manchester City and Everton. 13 minutes a period of confusion would always compel Man City. They will always rule that 30 minutes because it could end up costing them the title. So now Arsenal has 3 matches left, and then they're at an advantage. Man City dropped 2 points. So they will get highly boosted against that match. And I'm expecting a tough match. Our in-house sports analyst, Mr. Biodun, show me.
All right, then that's about it for the newspapers up for review. Still to come, is the crisis within the African Democratic Congress a sign of a struggling opposition or a power struggle that could reshape alliances ahead of 2027? Join us after the break. We'll be right back.